Welcome everyone. Thank you for clicking on our video. And special thank you to Aaron for having us here today to talk about a very important topic, dire topic of environmental justice and climate justice. We are the Center for Urban Health Equity at Morgan State University. And our topic today, so I thought I could just click next. Our topic today, our presentation title is GIS Tools and a Historical Framework for Climate Justice, Understanding the Past to Plan and Design the Future. My name is Julian Walker. I am the Program Manager of the Center for Urban Health Equity.
And my name is Collins Oswago, and I'm the Administrative Assistant for Outreach and Community Engagement at the Center for Urban Health and Equity.
Hi, I'm Dr. Marvin Perry. I am the Coordinator of Events for the Center of Urban Health and Equity, and I'm also the Community Coordinator for Morgan State University. Thank you.
Again, thank you for having us. So that we go right into the purpose of the presentation, right? So the purpose of the presentation is to provide clarity and insight on the history of redlining in America, explore the relationship between redlining policies and the creation and exacerbation of environmental health hazards, and showcase the Black Butterfly GIS tool and a historical framework to move towards achieving environmental justice and climate justice for historically redlined communities. A lot to cover, but we will be succinct, of course. So we'll give it over to Collins.
Yes, so I'm just gonna tell you more about the Center for Urban Health and Equity. So it was founded in 2021 under the School of Community Health and Policy at Morgan State University. So the mission is to positively impact the root causes of urban health inequities through asset-based, community-driven research and practice. So our priority areas are strengthen a university-community relationship, enhance the capability of communities to address urban health inequities, and to promote health equity through community-based participation. So which forms the basis of why we are here today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Collins. So, as the title says, understand the past to plan and design the future. And so as we go through the past, we start at the early 1900s. So in the early 1900s, what was happening in Baltimore and honestly across the country were Black people were migrating to the north to leave the harsh conditions, environmental conditions, social conditions, living conditions of post-slavery. And so how that was received by the North, how that was received was propaganda, a lot of propaganda and a lot of fear mongering. So what you see on this slide is a representation of that propaganda and fear mongering. So this is really public outrage, right? So this has nothing to do about policy. This is just how the communities of Baltimore City felt while seeing Black people come into their neighborhood. So you have words, this is real. When I first saw this, I thought maybe this was, like maybe someone typed this up. No, this is real. So, you see words like Negro invasion, white residents of one Baltimore swell up sections up in arms. You have bottom right, Utah Place, the west side of Baltimore threatened by Negro invasion. That's 1913. And so then coming to 1910, a lot of people, I don't know if you know this, Baltimore City was actually, so the mayor of Baltimore at the time, John Barry Mahul, Baltimore was the first city to pass a racial zoning law in America. And so if you look to the bottom left, sorry to jump around, so Roland Park was one of America's first garden suburbs and built for whites only. So that is to say that in 1910, that's when the government started to step in and start to actively have a destructive role in segregating neighborhoods. And so one may say, why is this important? So this was, again, public outrage, but this led to, drum roll, redlining policies. So again, as the slide previously, right? So I'm gonna go through this so that everyone knows what we're looking at. So the previous slide was public outrage. But that public outrage allowed the government to be more aggressive and take a more active role in segregating neighborhoods, like I said. So what happened is that there's two federal agencies, the Federal Home Loaning Bank Board and the Federal Housing Administration. So they published, when I say published, I mean published, how they are grading neighborhoods. And the reason they were grading neighborhoods was to determine which areas would receive bank loans and which areas would be denied bank loans. So you'll see as we look at the map here, this is a map of Baltimore City. This is a 1937 map. This is the redlining map, right? So, a lot of cities across the country also have this map. So you could probably find this map for your specific city or region, whoever is watching this video. So as you see is green and blue are the grade A and B accordingly. So A and B were areas that would have received, have been approved for bank loans. The C and D, the yellow and red areas of Baltimore City Baltimore City would not receive these loans. So this is the planning of what of the areas in Baltimore City, and this is the government being involved. So now this is policy. This is people who are supposed to be in the red and yellow are forbidden. It was forbidden for us to move into these into these green and blue neighborhoods. So one may say, okay, thank you for this. I learned something new, redlining. What does this have to do about environmental health, environmental justice? And this is what is great question, but that is what's next. So I'm sorry, let me jump back really quick. So if you look south on this map, and I wish I had a pointer, but if you look south, all you see is red and yellow. You see C and D grades. That's important for the next slide. So this next slide is Curtis Bay, South Baltimore. This is um, targeted. These are factories, of course, that were emitting, that were producing sulfuric acid. So they were emitting toxic pollutants, combustion products, particulate matter, all of which are carcinogens, right? Things that cause cancer. Sorry to get all sciencey, but that's important, right? Because if you look at the redlining map, these industries were placed in areas that were red and yellow lined. So that is to say that it was targeted. And so that is why now we'll go into that and we'll move forward. So I don't want to jump the gun, but this is just showing sulfuric acid, emitting toxic pollution. And then you also have another one, and this is in the same area, right? This is still Curtis Bay. This is still South Baltimore. And there was more. I just didn't want to fit them all into the presentation. We only have but so long. So, but there were a lot of factories that were producing. So this is guano and acid production. I don't know the science behind that, but I know that it emits. I know that it emits these toxic gas, and that's important because yes, like these, it is a kind of a pervasive knowledge that these industries are bad for climate, bad for climate, bad for environment, and bad for the environment in the general sense, right? But the people who bear the burden of these disproportionately bear the burden of the climate injustice and the environmental injustice are people who live in these yellow and red line communities. And that is persistent until this day. And that speaks to the next slide. So this is an article. You can, of course, read it on your own time. The title is Street Tree Diversity Reveals a Legacy of Redlining. And so I went ahead and highlighted what I thought was very important to the topic. So neighborhoods in Baltimore that were redlined have consistently lower street tree diversity and are 9 times less likely to have large oak trees occupying viable planting sites. So to not just read it verbatim, to put that in other words, so neighborhoods with little tree cover, few grassy areas, and also a lot of concrete can be as much as 15 to 20 degrees hotter than the surrounding areas. So that is say red line, yellow line communities, to bring it back to the historical context, can be 15 to 20 degrees hotter in the summer. And why, you may ask, and this is more again on the, I'm sure a lot of people know this is just what experts say, is that, you know, the trees, the greenery, it absorbs. So these communities, so the green and blue line communities, they absorb a lot of these air pollutions because they have trees, because they have asphalt, because there's less concrete, because there's more vegetation. It's not as hot, there's less air pollution, and these plants absorb. But in these historically redlined communities, they don't absorb heat, they radiate heat. So that's important because now we're talking about people's lives. People are dying. Now, you know, heat strokes, these people are having heat strokes and they disproportionately bear the burden of death to these heat islands. And that's what I'm alluding to. I didn't want to give a super technical term, but it's heat islands. That's what we're seeing. And so the picture on the right, it's a heavy topic, so I don't want to say, you know, nothing's happening in Baltimore. There's no solution. There's a lot of, you know, there are organizations that are doing the work. So a Blue Water Baltimore, they are in the city and they plant trees. They plant trees in neighborhoods that need them and they target them. But it's also important to say that this is not on accident. None of this is on accident. I have a couple of excerpts, so I'm gonna go from left to right, then to the bottom. So Nika Namdi, this is a researcher that works with Dr. Brown. This is on Dr. Brown's website, but I took a screenshot of the what was pertinent to this topic. So the essay is called Fight Blight Baltimore. So the research and lived experience shows that blight is violent and it begets violence. Blighted properties reduce access to clean air and water, as well as healthy food and affordable housing. So the word violence has a preconceived notion that it is gun violence, that it is assault. Environmental injustice is violent. It is very violent. 15 to 20 degrees hotter in the summer is violence. So blighted properties reduce access to clean air and water. So then we move over to the right. So that's kind of painting the picture. Okay, wow, that's horrible, right? So then now we move in, but why? And that's what the Center for Urban Health Equity is all about. We go to the root cause of what we're talking about. So urban ecologists have also found that formerly A-graded neighborhoods, green, are significantly cooler than degraded neighborhoods, redlined, which with nearly twice the total vegetation and tree canopy and higher net ecosystem services. So thus the investment or disinvestment in a neighborhood based on a program that ended in the 1960s can predict environmental conditions 60 years later. If you look at the redlining map of 1937, it can predict the environmental conditions in 2025. That is important to examine the past so that we can design the future. So for the biodiversity experts, street trees provide a unique study population because trees can live for many decades. And patterns of street tree size, distribution, and diversity reflect both present day and historical public policy and management decision. Important because this is not on accident. It says it reflects both present day and historical public policy and management decisions. So the people who have the power to make the decisions for what goes on in specific neighborhoods are doing this on purpose. It is a policy. They are following a policy that was formed in the 1930s and are still uplifting it today. But now we're at the Center for Urban Health Equity, right? And as Collins eloquently said, we want to put the power in the hands of the community. So that goes to our next slide. And so GIS mapping and historical framework. So again, putting the power in the hands. And so with that, you need to have a tool. It needs to be something tangible. And so Dr. Brown came up with the Black Butterfly GIS Hub. It's a tool for community and for researchers to access smaller data and advocate for specific neighborhoods. And I say neighborhoods specifically for a reason. But before I move on to why smaller data matters and talking about neighborhoods, I just want to say that this is a hub. This is an aggregated site of all the GIS data and all the GIS systems in the city. So from 2 all the way down to 9, and if you open up the Open Baltimore Data Portal, then you're getting into even it's a public Open Baltimore data hub that can show violence. It shows it. So this is to say that this is trying to help the community advocate for themselves and look in one place instead of jumping all around trying to find data that may or may not exist. So this is very much so in response to what the community has asked the Center for Urban Health Equity to do. And that was just a shameless plug. But that is to say there's specific GIS maps that are more pertinent to certain topics, and that's what I want to get at. So I mentioned smaller data. Why does smaller data matter? So you look at, and this is confusing. This can be confusing to just anyone that looks at it. So right now, I zeroed in, I honed in to a specific part of Baltimore City. So we're looking at West Baltimore. So if you want to get data on your neighborhood, for whatever reason, for whatever the topic is, you have to look at community statistical areas. A lot of data is at the community statistical area. There are 50 community statistical areas, but over 250 neighborhoods in Baltimore City. So Baltimore City is a city of neighborhoods. That being said, so if you look to the left, that yellow square, if you will, that I highlighted is the Greater Mont-Domin Community Statistical Area. If you look under that, that is all the neighborhoods that make up that community statistical area. So as you probably know where I'm going with this, but what happens when a neighborhood within a community statistical area says, oh, we need more trees, we need more grocery stores, we need XYZ, but the data from the community statistical area doesn't support the need. So then you say, well, what can I do? Center for Urban Health Equity, Dr. Brown said, I got it. So what he did is he now is looking at neighborhood statistical areas. So for instance, and this is for the sake of what this map is for grocery stores. So if you look to the left, there's only one yellow dot within that square. So that community statistical area has a grocery store. But within that same community statistical area is the neighborhood of Walbrook. So Walbrook can say, I want a grocery store. And they may argue your community statistical area has a grocery store. Yes, but my neighborhood statistical area does not. I live in Walbrook and we have a population of 2,244 people with no grocery store. You say it like that, it's like that makes sense. Now we're talking about environmental justice, right? So if you say, imagine a GIS map that can show you tree canopy, can show you a heat map of how hot the city is during the summer. And that allows for a neighborhood to say, we need more trees, a neighborhood rather than a whole community statistical area. So this allows us to look at, and for neighborhoods and community members and researchers to advocate in a disaggregated data way instead of a aggregated every neighborhood in the community statistical area. Not to belabor the point, but I'm sure you understand. So yes, that is why smaller data matters. But moving into intentionality now, this is also a lot to look at. But because this is layered, and I love the fact that this is layered. And I actually love the fact that this is a lot to look at. You just need to know what you're looking at. So again, this is a map of Baltimore City. So this is a tool for intentionality because I'm gonna break it down like this. Those small dots all over the place are vacant homes, right? So we talked about blight begets violence in the general sense, right? So those small dots are vacant homes. And you can see, so if you, we're not going to look at the whole map as a whole, but if you look to the top left, you'll see Homeland. Homeland was a green line community in 1937. Very little vacant homes. So then we go to the next layer of, okay, so the dark blue, light blue are, for this map, it's homicides. And then the heat is that the dark yellow shows you where homicides uh, are more prevalent in the city. So then if you go to the bottom, you see Lauraville, blue lined, also a nice place to live, a lot less vacant homes. Scattered all over the place. You know, you don't have one block full of vacant homes. But then you start going to yellow lined and red lined communities. So you have Park Heights, then you have Upton and Druid Hill Heights. So you can see that the cluster of vacant homes. And again, this is, you know, we have to be very, I'm going to be in, what's the word? This is about homicide and violence. So but I want to say, one could say, right? And if you want to go further with this and do your own analysis, you could say that these communities are most likely also, um, because of all the vacant homes, high concrete, no tree canopy, no tree diversity, which thus leads to environmental injustice, which leads to the deleterious effects of air pollution in these in the environmental conditions. Um, so yes, I was gonna say if anyone has any questions, but obviously this is a recording. So I just want to make sure that we all understand what we're looking at here. So these dots again, in these cluster of dots are vacant homes, and I would then say I would just say from lived experience, lived experience, I've lived in Baltimore. If you go to these places, and Dr. Perry also has lived here for a long time. If you go to these places that have vacant homes, I can tell you with my own eyes that there is no tree canopy, that it is hotter in these areas. And so I'll leave it like that instead of leaving it, in the research way. So, and then, and I think that's about it for this map. So this is a way for us to be intentional. This is a way for us to look and say, where should we plant trees in the city? Who needs us the most? And it happens to be historically redlined and yellow-lined communities. And then thank you. So then that goes to our conclusion.
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Walker, for that. Again, Aaron, historically, red line and yellow line Baltimore City neighborhoods disproportionately bear the burden of environmental injustice. And we've known that for years. CUHE also knows that we can't pursue climate justice or environmental justice without the frameworks and tools that incorporates historical context. And that is what Dr. Brown has been doing through his research and his model. As we use GIS mapping tools such as the Black Butterfly GIS, it can help intentionally target historically red line and yellow line communities. Again, I have been in Baltimore City for over 35 years. I have watched it transform into a better Baltimore, but at the same time, I still see some of the same issues that took place 35 years ago. And as Mr. Walker talked about blight, as he talked about uh, violence, as it relates to intentionality in communities that aren't as green, those things are prevalent. And so, as we use this tool to better Baltimore, what we need to also do is have these conversations in the communities. And that's what Mr. Walker and the CUHE outreach team has been promoting community conversations. So as we travel Baltimore, as we do interviews with folks like yourself, Aaron, and others, our goal is to keep the message out there that there can be a better Baltimore, but we need to use the research to move us in a direction of transformative results. Thank you very much. I yield back to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Perry. And you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. So this is just how you contact us if you want to contact Dr. Perry, get connected on the outreach, and if you want to talk to the program manager, me. Maybe you are interested in more on the research side, connecting the research to the community. And then I can connect you with some researchers, or I can connect you with Dr. Perry, who can take you out to the community and actually show you what some of the people, what some of the folks are doing. And Collins Oswego is our administrative assistant, so you can also contact him and get anything that you may need, any deliverables. And then he's also a funnel, of course, to Dr. Perry, to me, and to the Center for Urban Health Equity in the general sense. So our website, I mean, sorry, not our website, I should have put our website now that I feel remiss, but our email is CUHE, at morgan.edu. And our website is q.morgan.edu. So it wasn't too hard that I didn't put it there. But again, thank you so much, Aaron. On behalf of Q, on behalf of Dr. Brown, who I'm sure would have loved to do this, but I'm honored that he allowed the community team to talk about how we actually use his research. And that is a very good example as to what Q does. They do the research. And of course, we do our best to connect that to the community, which is what the community team does. And that's that bridge that we're trying to build in the community. So as Dr. Perry so eloquently said. So thank you so much, Aaron, for this. And I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for taking time to present. Thank you, all three of you. Do you have a few minutes for some questions?
Yeah, should I stop sharing screen, or what do
Oh,
you
no,
feel?
no, leave it right there so people
Okay,
can access your contact information. And believe it or not, in post-production, your website will magically appear. So
perfect.
if there's any other information that we need to add, I'm happy to do it. Yes, thank you for this presentation. And I think this is absolutely amazing. I'm fairly familiar with Morgan State University. Had never heard of the Center for Urban Health and Equity before, so I'm happy to see that it exists. How long has it been active?
Since 2021, the Dean Sidnor, and Dr. Hawkins, who just retired, sadly. Also, great she retired. But yes, Dean Sidnor and Dr. Hawkins um, had a brilliant, ingenious idea of saying that we need to connect what Morgan is doing with the community. And so they created the Center for Urban Health Equity, which is a research center, but it is predicated on what the community wants us to do. We follow what the community says. And then that's why I think what sets Q apart is honestly Dr. Perry, right? Like not every research center has somebody who's a champion in the community leading
Mhm,
the
mhm.
researchers into the community.
And so was this like a post-COVID initiative, or was it already kind of in motion prior to COVID?
If I may add, and that's a good question, Aaron, that Morgan State has always been working towards centers. And
Hmm.
as we move to be an R01 research university, we understand the importance of not only to be in the community, but open up centers that impact the community and get information out there that other universities aren't sharing the information the way we share it. We're
Hmm.
intentional, and at the same time, we're transformative. So thank you for that question.
No, I love that because a lot of what we're researching or what you're talking about isn't, I mean, the GIS map is new, of course, but the content is not necessarily new. But it's often stuck in kind of academia up here, and so you have academics talking to academics, and rarely does it trickle down to the actual community members and
Exactly.
that actually need the content. So I love the fact that you are uniquely positioned to kind of be that bridge between academia and the community, which is very much needed. So the four words that I didn't hear in your presentation are social determinants of health, but everything that you do as part of the Q addresses the social determinants of health. So talk about kind of how you all see social determinants of health and how that plays into the mission and vision of the Center for Urban Health Equity.
Yeah. So, well, first and foremost, I want to address the word health, right? Like health, a lot of people think health is, you wake up and you're not sick. Health is internally how you feel. But even more than that, there's a social component to that. The health of your neighborhood matters. The health of the air that you breathe matters. So the social determinant side are, for anyone who, doesn't necessarily know, it's just where you sleep, where you play, where you eat, where you worship, um, where you exist matters. And that determines your health. So where we fit in that is exactly in the mission statement of looking at the root causes of urban health inequities.
Mm-hmm.
The root causes of a lot of the things that we see are the social determinants of health.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And so, I mean, I don't know if anyone has anything else to add, but I think that is where we fit. And then I'll bring in the community end of it all. And just to say that, like you said, this subject matter is not, the content isn't new, right? So I think where we fit in that is the community may not know the word social determinants of health, but
Right.
they know that if you walk outside and you see something you don't know, you go to see a gunshot, you do this, you feel not good, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't
Mm-hmm.
feel healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And so they know that, but just because they know that doesn't mean that they can impact the policies that allow that to happen.
That's right.
And so the research end is, we do our best to produce something that is, one, led by the community, but two, powerful enough to make it all the way up to the decision makers to say, listen, this is proof. This is proof that we need to focus on redlined communities if we want to impact air, at the pollution, if we want to impact heat island. So that's what I'll say to that answer, and I'll let anyone else add.
And I think you did a fantastic job, Mr. Walker. And I would just like to add that the School of Community Health and Policy has been doing this work for over 25 years and just looking at, as you say, social determinants. And we've many scholarly articles on issues that impact our citizens of Baltimore City. And not only is it done in the School of Community Health and Policy, but it is done in an interdisciplinary fashion in the other disciplines as well. So, we're in that space. We want to own that space, and we definitely are making a difference in Baltimore City, one community at a time. Thank you.
No
Yes.
question. No question.
Great word.
So, what the one of the reasons that's driving this year's conference and our theme of healthy, smart, high performance homes, the case for affordability, expansion, and innovation is because Baltimore City has the 8th highest rate of asthma-related emergency visits and the
Yes.
2nd highest rate of asthma-related fatalities that affect the African American female in our community more than any other sector in the country. And so, and the fact that we spend 90% of our lifetime indoors, whether it's a plane, train, car, our homes, the office, but 70% of that time is actually spent in the home. I think it's close to 14 to 16 hours that we spend in our homes, and our bedroom is the place where we spend the most amount of time. So I'm really focused my practice on indoor air quality and the effects of particle matter, of which
Yep.
we do a lot of studies. The EPA has been studying outdoor, and not only studying but regulating outdoor air quality for the last 30 years. But we breathe the majority of the outdoor air indoors. And so when you were talking about Curtis Bay a little bit earlier, and I've read research about how, the black soot that comes and lays on top of the homes and the cars, that homeowners don't even like to open their windows because there's so much negative particle matter out there in the field. But then that creates another issue with indoor air quality because, again, we spend the majority of our time indoors. I guess my question is, are there current plans to maybe merge your research with the EPA Air Now app to measure outdoor air quality? And then where do you see this research going in regards to indoor air quality monitoring measurements, both in residential properties and commercial properties as well?
So, if I may elaborate on that question, so we have a research project now that is being done, led by Dr. Jawin Lee, and it's being done in the Lake Clifton campus, our newly acquired Lake Clifton campus, which was made possible through our president, Dr. Wilson. And so, in that campus area, we have built a site where we are launching balloons that measure air quality. And so, we know that in order to make a better Baltimore, you have to measure the quality not only of air, but the ground.
Yeah.
And as you were talking about the houses, I've spent over 30 years in that housing industry as a blue collar STEM person, and now as a blue collar STEM expert, as a doctor. And one of the things that we realize is that and you can relate to this, Aaron, when you take an old house that has been around for over 50 years and has so many built in toxins, that when you go, you can't just put that house back together without one letting it air out. So I think our research has led, especially as we see on Biddle Street and other areas, to developers taking a more advanced approach on how they prepare these homes for new homeowners. They're now taking out the windows, taking out the walls, letting the area breathe, taking sheetrock and other interior products down and starting from scratch. And I think it's because of the research that Dr. Brown has done in the Black Butterfly. Folks are starting to say we have to take a more healthy approach in putting homes back up on the market. Thank you.
Absolutely. I am very proud of my hard copy of Dr. Brown's book that he recently came out with, Bank Lending and Capital Environments in the Black Butterfly, Key Citations and Research Findings. So, your group, Dr. Brown, and your group are working tirelessly to make sure that the research is not staying in the academic ethos and that it's actually getting down into the community. So I can't thank you all enough for doing that. And we're learning from some of our other presenters as well that you talk about redline communities 15% higher because of lack of trees, which then creates hotter nights, which creates an asthma trigger. Because a lot of folks in Baltimore, unfortunately don't have central air conditioning or any cooling apparatus to be able to cool down their homes, which then creates a whole other issue. And so I'm excited to have met the three of you and excited about your work, and look to support your work in any way that I can moving forward when we talk about creating healthy, smart, high performance homes that really should be that place of respite, that place of healthcare. Like homes should be healthcare, right? And we all know that the number one determinant of health is the home. So I appreciate that. And any last comments? Anything that you want people to know about your work or anything in general?
Man, I mean, one, thank you again. I really appreciate it. I think that there's one thing that I would love to take from this conversation is being led by community. Like this is a topic that a lot of researchers are talking about, but even when I showed the GIS tool, that's something that, I mean, I have an event next week for community organizations only, to learn how to use that tool in whatever way they want to. It's just a powerful way to see your neighborhood, which is so important. So I think from my perspective, I think that if you want to do work with CUHE, please be connected to, to neighborhoods and really advocate for people and uplift voices.
Yes, I also wanted to add that we also use an approach of like open door policy where we connect with communities. So we just want to urge, the community, the neighborhood, if they want to reach out to us on any subject related to health or anything, they can always do that, and we can always work with them to make sure that we make Baltimore, successful.
If you don't mind, I like to make the last word. Morgan State is a university for learning. So for all of our high school students that are out there that are interested in looking for a school which will give you, learning in the environment, or where we call it experiential learning, Morgan State University is the place to come. And even if you have already graduated as an undergraduate student, but you want to work on your master's or doctorate, again, Morgan State University is that school to come and seek whatever your interest is and to fulfill your dreams. Thank you very much.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right, have a good day.